Florida State at Clemson. Well. This is a game that, early in the year, I feel like Clemson fans probably felt pretty good about, their chances, at least 50-50. At this point, I don't feel like Clemson fans are feeling near as good after taking let's just be real about it, an ass whooping from Duke on the road. 28-7, they lost that game, and somebody called it. I can't remember who did. Maybe that was me. I don't know. I can't remember. But this Clemson rushing attack is pretty daggum good, though, man. They're 216.7 yards a game. That gets you 16th best in the country right now. And they're about 50% on third down. So really, I think what it's going to boil down to on this game is Florida State being able to stop the run. Okay. And I'm not completely sold that they can do that. I mean, we saw them really, really struggle last week with Boston College. So, excuse me, I think that's where the 2-point line comes from on this game. Florida State's only a 2-point favorite and is top 5 in the country in every single poll you can look at on the internet. And Clemson's unranked. So I think that's kind of where the hang-up is in this game. And not to mention there's a historical bugaboo that has gone on with Florida State beating Clemson. But with all that being said, I really look for the Florida State offense to take advantage of the Clemson secondary in this game. And there's not much on paper that's going to show you that Clemson has a bad pass defense. They're 10th best in the nation. They got four interceptions, but and I think they've only given up 1 or 2 touchdown passes. But I think that's about to change in this game. They haven't played a dynamic passing attack like this yet. And I do believe that Florida State is going to be able to cover this too. And so I'm taking Florida State -2. What you got on this one, man?
Man, this is a really, big time matchup. It could decide the ACC at the end of the day. And
Yeah,
kind of like what you mentioned, it seems like, and if you would have told me this preseason or now, knowing what we know now, Clemson has a better defense. Okay. Surprise, surprise. Metrics wise, I mean, their rushing defense is 37th in the country. Passing defense is 10th in the country. And whenever I went through and did these stats, I looked at for rushing, offense, and defense. I looked at yards per attempt. Some teams just don't really attempt to run the ball very much. So to me, it was more important to show the efficiency of the rush. So
yeah, the effectiveness.
Anyways, yeah. So Clemson's been able to stop teams pretty well, right around three yards. And it looks like Florida State's about 72nd and in rushing defense, but they're 18th in rushing offense. So they run the ball a little bit. Well, they're about the same, I guess, rushing wise, and then passing, on their passing offense, they're about the same. So offensively, they're about the same, other than when it comes to scoring, and actually, surprisingly, Clemson's a little bit more efficient on third down. So when I look at this game, I say, okay, they have a similar offense. Clemson's defense has the slight edge. They haven't been able to score as much, but maybe they get a break now. They're both +1 in the turnover margins. Florida State has actually benefited a ton. If you look at the bottom right of your screen here, opponent penalties, 83.7 yards per game that the opponent has given up just in penalties. That's not a stat you see very often, but it tells me a lot. I can draw a lot from that because it tells me how lucky this team gets in some ways, right? So, in comparison, Clemson is 12th in penalties allowed. They're only giving up 30 yards per game in penalties. So, that's a very micro stat. It's not a huge deal, but it does kind of tell me a little bit. I'm already leaning towards Clemson, so it does kind of help me in that territory. So Clemson's allowed 6 sacks, Clemson has allowed 3 sacks. and Florida State's allowed 8. So if they're averaging 1 per game, maybe they give up 2 this game. Nothing too crazy. You know, this I actually put Clemson at plus 2.5. You know, I bet on that. It's kind of going the other direction now. A lot of that money was coming in on Florida State, and I think it's starting to regress back to the median there a little bit. But I'm gonna go. I'm gonna fight you on this one. I'm gonna go Clemson at plus 2. I get it at 2.5, but I don't think I'll need it. I think I think Clemson's gonna win this one, and I think that they're due. I think they're figuring some things out offensively. I think that and defensively too. I mean, they weren't the greatest defense, that first week against Duke. So, but I really feel like Florida State has benefited from poor play from the other teams. LSU wasn't their best in week 1, right? We see what LSU is now, and I feel like already, 3 weeks removed from week 1, if Florida State and LSU were to play again, it'd be a different story. So, now Clemson's not LSU either, but I feel pretty confident that Clemson, with their backs against the wall, will come out with a fight, and they're going to end up beating Florida State this week. And we'll have to see. Hopefully, we can get a rematch of this game later in the year for the championship game, and we'll have to see how that one goes. But for now, again, I'm going with Clemson to win this one. So you can go ahead and mark that down as my best bet.
Well, I don't dislike the pick. Anytime there's a 2 or a 3 point, margin on something, that's a pick 'em. I mean, it's close to a pick 'em. My thing is here, and this is kind of my final thoughts, and we can move on here. But for a while now, Clemson has not had a wide receiver that scares anybody. I mean, and for a Florida State defense that doesn't rank super well defensively, although the Boston College thing last week. I mean, maybe you could say that's a fluke. I don't know. I mean, Clemson's been Florida State's been very inconsistent the last couple years. That's how they do. They have an amazing game, like they are really like in the second half against LSU, and then they have a game like they did against Boston College. So I feel like Florida State's ready to take a step forward. They may, they may spurn my advances towards them this weekend. We'll see. I hear a lot of people that like Clemson in this game, and I'm sticking with my gut. I'm not changing what I thought about either one of these teams quite yet, and I think Clemson is still soul searching. I think they're soul searching a bit. But Florida State surely did not look good last week. So hey, you never know. So we got a little fight right there, man. We'll and what time does that one come on? That's a 12:05 game, isn't it?
I believe so. I got the schedule pulled up.
Yeah, it is. I remember now because I remember thinking we'll be together for the 3:30 and the 7 o'clock and 7:30 games and stuff. We won't be together for that one.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Let's talk about